And welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I'm your host, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another off-season supporter series. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, since footy is not on right now, we got to find a way to get to the March and the start of the AFL season. And I thought, what better way to do this particular off-season than chat with some American and international fans for my off-season supporter series this year. And joining me today, someone I know very, very well. This person also lives in Des Moines, and I've had the luxury of working with him as one of the players for the Des Moines Roosters, Mr. Jacob Gross. Jacob, great to see you, sir.
For having me.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. This will definitely be fun. It's always good. I've had the pleasure of working with Jacob the last couple of years, so I'm excited to sit down and have a chat with him onto this. So let's hop right into it. Before we get into the footy, I always like knowing just a little bit about the person that I'm chatting with. So if you could just real quickly, a little bit about yourself outside of the sport of football.
So let's see. I lived in Des Moines for 3.5 years now. I'm a IBEW union electrician. Uh, really, I was gonna say, besides footy, that's pretty much about all I do now these days, just work.
There's nothing wrong with that. A simple life sometimes is one of the best. So let's jump right into it. One of my favorite things, especially when I talk with international footy fans, is the finding footy story because it's not here normally. It's not big. So I love asking this. What is your finding footy story?
For me, it was more of I finally got sick of Josh Curtis, or as a lot of people around the country know him as Shotgun. Finally got tired of that guy just harassing me at work and decided to come give it a shot. And haven't really looked back since.
Well, there is nothing wrong with that. Shotgun is quite the persistent player. I know some of the people on the podcast have heard me talk about him. Shotgun is quite well known, not only in the US, but especially here in Des Moines, where he is probably one of those guys that you never not hear a story about Shotguns. Always fun on that one. So I gotta ask this, just jumping right to it. What's your favorite part about the sport of football?
The the versatility of who is can be on the field from sizes to heights, skill sets. I don't know really besides I mean, maybe American football, where you can have guys that are such different sizes and unique skill sets that can kind of come together and play on the same team. So that's my favorite thing about the sport is just the versatility that you can have within it.
Fantastic. And as we've kind of already established, you're one of the players who I've had the pleasure of coaching. So you have this unique thing. Most of the fans that I talk with have never played this sport or have only kicked the footy around. So I got to ask this, as a player, what's your favorite part about the game?
I mean, hitting people with no pads on is fun. Uh, but I mean, I think my favorite thing inside the game is really just seeing a bunch of guys come together and for me, it's a bunch of guys who have no idea what they're doing, and they work really hard to figure out how to play the sport, and then they come together and when it clicks for everyone, it's just like that moment, and that's one of the best things about playing the sport and coming to it.
Definitely, for sure. The mateships, I know that the years that I've put into this thing, there's so many guys that I know of that have come around this group, and it's one of those favorite things. So I'm 100% with you, is seeing that one moment when it clicks and they get it is so much fun. So I never assume when it comes to guys playing in the USAFL or in Canada or in any of the internationals that they know about the AFL. So I got to ask, how is it that you found the AFL? Was it purely on Josh Curtis talking with you and diving into it, or did you find it another way?
The main thing for my push to find the AFL was really from you, to be honest with you. Teaching me, getting me to if you want to learn more, if you want to do better at the sport, you got to watch the professionals play, and that was what you told me, and you sold me on that. And I think the first game I ever watched, I was like, all right, I'm going to watch a game and learn and watch my positions and go from there.
I did not expect that answer, ladies and gentlemen. I will tell you this was not a setup question there for. I know that the guys in the team know. I tell them all the time that to watch games, watch games, watch games, watch games, because one of the best ways to learn is to watch the pros do it. So that was one of those. I just wanted to be sure nobody that was not one of those setup questions on that one. So we'll jump right into it. So we've got to target. You're one of the few that have come on the podcast that have not donned an item of your club, so nobody knows. I will ask this: who is it that's your club in the AFL?
Brisbane is my club. Go Lions.
Brisbane Lions, definitely one of those that they're a very happy bunch up in Brisbane for sure. So let's jump right into it. Since you're not wearing anything, I got to ask, have you ever purchased or what was the first club item for the Brisbane Lions that you ever purchased or were given?
I have a Brisbane Lions hat that I purchased from Play Aussie at one of our regional tournaments. That was the first thing I ever bought.
Fantastic, fantastic. Let's jump right into it. Fandom for me is something that everybody's fandom is different. Everybody watches the sport differently. Some people watch it with this, some people watch it with that. Some people they can't everything that their team does is right. Everything that the other team does is wrong. So I love finding out everybody's little niche in this lovely sport. So just real quickly, could you describe your fandom of the Brisbane Lions for me?
Yeah, so I get up and watch their games early in the morning on my way to work. Usually depends on what job I'm at and what time I start, but usually early that or I'll watch the game replays at work. But I usually watch at least I would say I can catch about 75% of their games through the Watch AFL app.
Anything else? Are you going online? Are you checking out and seeing who's the potential draft picks? Are you keeping track of their off season? Or are you just one of those that when the season's on, then you're paying attention?
So when the season's on, I've been paying attention, but I have found myself, becoming more of a diehard fan of the sport. So then that thing comes with draft picks, rookies, trades, contracts, things like that. You get more involved in the sport as you catch on to it more.
Mhm. Definitely, for sure. Like I said, everybody's different when it comes to it. So I always like asking this, especially as a player yourself. I'm interested to see what your response is. Do you have a favorite player of the past that donned the Lions jersey? And do you have a favorite player currently on the Lions list?
Say up until this year, I wouldn't have really been able to give you a pass player, but sadly now I can, right? Because Joe's gone. So so I can technically consider him in the past. And then I would say my favorite player currently it's probably Kai Lohman, to be honest with you. The way that he came on this year, and that's just, you see a player play like that and really inspire, I just love him.
Yeah,
Love seeing him play, run around.
he's a fantastic one. He's going to be fun to watch grow up. I will tell you this, when you get a shot, check out their treble winning teams of all their three-peat teams and some of the amazing superstars, including several AFL coaches that used to play for that Brisbane Lions team. So if you get a chance, check out that three-peat of the Brisbane Lions there in the early 2000s. Definitely some teams that will have some names that will jump out if you know some of the coaches for the AFL this year. So I asked this next question, but I mean, to be honest, this is going to be fun for me because the Premier is always the fun one. Your Brisbane Lions held the flag up on grand final day with an impressive win over the Sydney Swans. So your thoughts on the upcoming season? Because I mean, how hard is it not to be happy? Your team is a premiership.
It's pretty easy going when you finish the season out like that, especially when you kind of think about how they finished the season in general. Not even just that game, but just the last push in that season. They played phenomenally.
Mhm.
And it really makes you look forward to the future, especially when you look at the roster that they have. And I mean, granted, Joe's gone and everything like that, but I think there's, two or three rookies that really stood out to me and how they played, and I think they're going to be okay moving forward.
But definitely for sure. And then, which is a great transition to the next one because we're going into an upcoming season. The Brisbane Lions have to defend their premiership. And for a lot of people going into this off season, they wondered, Joe Danaher stepping away, how would the team go? So looking into next year, what are your thoughts? Do you think they can go back to back and maybe push for maybe another three-peat? Or are your expectations a little bit lower, knowing it's never easy to repeat as champion?
Yeah, you'd like to see him go back, and you'd like to see him, be successful for years to come still. But it's obviously one of the hardest things to do in a sport is to consecutively win championships, and it doesn't matter what sport you play, it's always the hardest thing. But I mean, when you look at it, I mean, they got some guys that I think that can kind of step up, and I think Charlie Hipwood might be one of those guys that come in and score a lot of goals next season, and so we'll just have to see, and injuries, and hopefully everyone stays healthy, and I think they definitely have a shot at going back to back for sure.
Well, they get a few guys back from ACL injuries. You add probably one of the best 18-year-olds in Levi Ashcroft, which only adds to your depth in the midfield. I'm it's hard for me as I'm sitting here getting ready, started kind of pulling my thoughts together for my preseason thing. It's really hard not to like Brisbane again this year, even though several teams have gotten better. So I'm it's gonna be a fun preseason preview to see how I tip on that one because so much there. So let's have some fun. So this is always one of my favorite ones because up here in the States, a lot of our fans, we think we know everything. We all want to be the general manager. We want to be the person that makes the moves, that makes our team the best. Now, down in Australia, that's called the list manager. So I'm going to have a little bit of fun here. I'm going to install you as the list manager for the Brisbane Lions for one day. All of the other 17 teams, you can nick one player from the league to join Brisbane to help push them over to get another flag next year. Who's that one guy you bring up to Brizzy?
I mean, for me personally, only because I hate playing against him so much. But I mean, I would say Petraka. To be honest with you, I think one of the things that
Mhm.
they could get a lot from next year is kind of like a veteran leadership, a little guy that can play a little forward, play a little back, and kind of keep them together, be the glue to the team.
Yeah, he's definitely. It would add even more depth to your midfield, even more depth to the midfield at Brisbane, which is already scary enough as it is. And you add him, plus the fact he can go forward too. So I don't mind that. I don't mind that tip at all. That's a good one. So I have to ask this. Most people that listen to the podcast know I am a huge supporter of the women's game. I love the AFLW. So I got to ask, are you an AFLW fan at all?
In the sense of I am for the men's, but more so in the learning aspect
Mhm.
because we do play. Oh, the level that we play is probably very similar to the level of the AFL women's play. So you can kind of see more similarities between our game and their game. So I do watch their games, but not in the sense of fandom. It's more of a studying and understanding of the game than it is. It's more as a student than a fan.
Okay, so as somebody that hasn't gotten into the fandom part, I'll ask you this: is there something the AFLW could do to draw you in as a fan?
Scoring, right? That's one of the biggest things that you see is scoring differences. And I mean, but that's what I'm saying, where it's easy for me to watch those games compared to how we play because sometimes we score 11 points a game as well.
Mhm.
So, but I mean, just I would say that scoring and pace is going to be the one of the easiest things that are going to keep people interested in a game.
And I think that's on the rise too. If you look at some of the young kids that are coming in, I think you're getting more and more experience. You also got to look at it too. They play a little bit of a different game too. They play
Yeah,
16 aside, not 18. They have different rules with the lasso and different things like that. So I've told a lot of people, I said, I get the scoring argument, but you got to remember their games are shorter. They don't have time on like the men do. So that does add some extra time period. So it does kind of change a little bit how it's going. But I get it and I completely understand it. Again, not everybody's going to fall in love with it. It is a different game, but I completely get it. Love the honesty on that one. So I got to ask this. I know that we've talked about this. Have you ever been to Australia to see a game?
currently have not. I really hope that here pretty soon we can get the USA team back in Australia, and I'll be able to play on not only play in on the grounds, but also be able to go to a game while I'm down there as well. So we'll see.
Awesome, awesome. Because that was my next question would be is do you plan on it? Would you ever plan on doing it by yourself, not just as part of the USA program? Would you ever take a vacation during the season and try to go down and catch a game?
For sure. I was very close last year when Brisbane was in the semis. Very close. I just missed the cutoff by a little bit. I bought the plane ticket. I was going to get there on Monday, and I think the game was on Sunday, so I would have got there a day late. But yeah, I was very close. I think eventually, if I don't go through there if I don't go down to Oz to play footy, I'll at least go down for a vacation and watch a game.
It'll definitely be fun. I definitely, it's one of my, it's like I said, it's my bucket list. I've got several people. So if you do decide to go, let me know. I've got a few contacts in Brisbane. Let me know. I can maybe reach out and maybe help you out a little bit with that on that one. So with the last few questions that I have with this is going to be a little bit of fun because as you know, I've delved myself into Australian culture and definitely when we go down there. So I got to ask, when you go, are you going to try any Australian-based foods? And if so, is there one that you're looking forward to if you do?
Try some more authentic meat pies. We got a guy here in Des Moines that is Australian. He makes pretty good meat
Mhm.
pies, but everything's different, down under when you're actually there. So
I love pie mates. They're fantastic. I've shouted them out a couple of times on the podcast before. They are fantastic, and I know he's a footy man himself, so he loves connecting with the group. It's always been a lot of fun. So we'll shoot to the next question. Is that I know that with the GABA, it looks fantastic. There's different rows, so I got to ask, when you go, where do you think the ideal place to sit will be?
I think high, maybe second section, maybe 30 rows up,
Mhm.
so you can see everything. And I'd like to sit center field as close to center field as possible.
Mhm. Yeah, there's so many different angles, and I don't think there's a bad seat in the house, no matter what at all. So I always end my podcast asking this question just because for me, footy is something that there's always that one game that you go back to. There's always that one thing that always brings a twinkle to your eye, no matter who it is. So I gotta ask this. What's your favorite game of footy you have ever seen? Live, on the ground, on the television, late night, doesn't matter. Favorite game of footy you have ever seen?
Be biased and choose the AFL versus Ireland round three from the Transatlantic Cup.
I love it. The first one non AFL related. I absolutely love it for sure. That was probably a fantastic one. I remember sitting down on my couch watching that one. I was so proud of you and Shotgun. I thought you guys played fantastic. But I'm gonna do this before we get done with this podcast. I want you to humble brag, sir, because you had an accomplishment at this last Transatlantic Cup that nobody in the world has. Please tell my audience what award you were given at the Transatlantic Cup this last year.
I was given the mark of the tournament. Well, up in Toronto this year.
That was absolutely fantastic. I absolutely loved that mark. I nearly lost my iPad after you marked that football for sure. That was absolutely incredible. It was absolutely fantastic. Well, I gotta say this, Jacob. This was short and sweet, but I absolutely loved it. It was great to sit down and have a chat with you. I try to make sure and talk with some of the Roosters guys. Be sure I've been pushing on them a lot. People on the podcast know I talk about these guys a lot because they're a great group of guys that love this game. Not all of them are as nuts as I am, and I'll openly admit that. But the good thing is, many of them, they're fantastic guys. They're getting into it. They're progressing. And this is one of them. I cannot wait to see him progress more and more over the next few years. I cannot wait. So, Jacob, it's been fantastic. Thank you for hopping on the podcast. It's been fantastic. Stay warm, sir. I know that it is bitterly cold here in Des Moines, and I think we're all fighting over it.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for another episode of Donnie's Disposals. We'll be back with more footy coverage very, very soon. If you like what you're listening to, please like and subscribe, and we will have more footy coverage very, very soon.